Sun Mini Mill Berlin E-Prix. My name's Tom Brooks. Alongside me here to guide you through the action for FP3 is Alice Powell. Alice, great to have your company. You're here for the rookie test with Envision on Monday morning. Looking forward to that, first of all?
Yeah, I know, I am. It's been a while since I've been in the car, nearly 2 years, but looking forward to getting back on track and, of course, in a Formula E car as well.
Yeah, absolutely. It's going to be exciting for you, because when was the last time you were on circuit? Let's actually have a look at the calendar before we come back to that conversation. So you can see who are the winners and losers in 2024 so far. Pascal Wehrlein's taken 2 victories. Now Nick Cassidy has taken 2 wins as well. You can see Max Günther in there has taken a victory. Sam Bird, Oliver Rowland in the mix there also. The upshot is it's now Nick Cassidy who has a healthy lead, I say healthy lead, a slight lead actually in the championship going into round 10. He took that over from Pascal Wehrlein yesterday as a result of Wehrlein finishing 5th on the road and Cassidy of course taking a maximum 25 points. But Alice, just coming back to that, so say rookie test, when was the last time you were out in the car? Was it 2020 in Marrakesh?
Yeah, no, it was. That was pre-COVID times. I mean, that feels strange to say that, a long time ago, but yeah, totally different car. That was obviously the Gen 2 car, and this is, of course, tomorrow the Gen 3 car. So really love the rookie test, so it gives us drivers a great experience of Formula E, and you could say technically the future as well.
Well, it was that man that we just saw as well, Nick Cassidy, that you lined up alongside Jaguar, and Nick Cassidy now leading in both championships. Actually, you can see the advantage that Cassidy has, 9 points over Pascal Wehrlein in the Drivers' Championship race. Ollie Rowland there, very much still in the mix. Jake Dennis, a second successive non-scoring race. That means he sits on 89 points, tied now with Mitch Evans, and Jean-Eric Vergne is just slowly creeping his way up the order, courtesy of that second place finish. You can see further down the order some drivers now managing to get some points on the board, including Edo Mortara, 3 points for pole position yesterday, and also 3 points actually, I should say rather, in the race, as he managed to take 8th place at the checkered flag, scoring his first points under racing conditions. And here is how the team's championship looks as well. Jaguar TCS Racing with a healthy lead over Tag Heuer Porsche. You've got Nissan there in 3rd as well. DS Penske just a few points adrift. Andretti trailing a few points back, but crucially, leaders of the title at the end of 2023, Envision down in 8th place in the standings, and another non-score for them here. Let's have a look at this Tempelhof circuit, of course newly redesigned for this year. We've had 18-19 races now here at this Tempelhof airport, and it's had various different configurations. This year though, Alice, a new one, and I think it's a bit of a driver favourite, this one, you know.
Yeah, it's quite different, isn't it, to what we've previously seen. You've got that long straight now down turn 5 into turn 6, and I think that's what led to the racing that we had yesterday, sort of Lozano-esque, wasn't it, style racing. But no, all I've heard from the drivers is good things. Yeah,
it's a really fun circuit. I actually had the opportunity to drive it in the Gen 3 car myself yesterday, and I'm not a Formula E driver by any stretch of the imagination, but
purple sectors, I hope.
I hope so too. Well, we had a little competition between myself, JJ, and Nikki, and I'm hoping, fingers crossed, that my lap time was a little bit faster than theirs. So you can see here the Berlin skyline, 15 degrees track temperature, air temperature of 12 degrees at the moment. So fairly cool conditions. Obviously, it's going to get a fair bit warmer between now and when we get to qualifying and then subsequently the race, Alice. What do you think that's going to mean for the drivers? What are they going to learn in this FP3 session?
Well, I guess if you had any setup issues that you had yesterday, you'd want to try and dial those out, as we've just gone green. The drivers will filter out onto the circuit, but yet any setup issues or any maybe slight issues with the car, there's obviously been quite a few cars that were damaged yesterday as well. Joel Eriksson actually in the Envision had a diff issue after, I think it was contact with Van der Linde in the race, so of course he'll need to sort of shake that down just to make sure that everything's okay.
Yeah, absolutely. It was a bit like a scene from Scrap Heap Challenge, wasn't it, during the race yesterday? There was so much carbon littered over the circuit. The upshot is Jake Dennis was a retirement. Max Günther also ended up clipping the back of Edo Mortara, broke his steering arm, and subsequently was in the wall. Lucas de Grassi had quite a big incident actually down at the turn 6 and 7 hairpin, contact with a few other drivers, ending up with him spinning round, and then, as Alice just said, Joel Eriksson also ending up out of the race with rear suspension damage, and also seemingly drive shaft related problems there too. Here is Team Tag Heuer Porsche with Florian Molligan watching on, and Jay Penske as well. Another podium for Jean-Eric Vergne, 2nd of the season. Last time he was on the podium actually was back in January in Diriyah, believe it or not. So good news there for him to get himself back on the box. And as we saw in the championship standings, he's slowly creeping his way now up that Drivers' Championship.
Yeah, and I think the consistency is the key, isn't it? Unlike Jake Dennis, they've just had a bit of a struggle this year, and if you fall outside the points or have a DNF, especially because the racing's so close, that really damages your hopes for getting the title.
Yeah, it certainly does. This man here, Thomas Biermeyer, disappointed yesterday after Lucas Di Grassi's DNF. Home race for Abt Cupra, home race for Lucas Di Grassi, not home race for Lucas Di Grassi, home race for Abt Cupra certainly, of course. But yeah, disappointment there for the team, and they'll be hoping for better fortunes in this race here this afternoon. Of course, round 10 is what we're in, and it's 2 laps shorter in terms of the race duration. We saw what we call a peloton-style race, of drivers saving energy a lot. I mean, that was kind of negated to a degree by the 2 long safety car periods that we had. But given the fact that this race is 2 laps shorter today, what do you think we're going to see? Much of the same?
I think much of the same. I still think, the thing is, these cars do, believe it or not, produce a decent amount of drag for this style of racing. So you don't really want to be in the lead for a very long time. So you'll have a driver that will be at front for a little bit and then go, well, hang on, this is not sustainable, you know, this is not energy efficient, so I need to drop behind. But of course, they all want to be then in the top 8, so they have that chance of getting the win at the end of it. So yeah, with this style of track, I still think that it's going to be the same again today, even with less laps.
Well, this is one of the replacement drivers, 5 new drivers in the seats this weekend. This is Jordan King. He's in for Nick de Vries, who had a clash with the World Endurance Championship, just having a snap of oversteer there, entering into turn 4. I have to say, I loved it during quali yesterday, the scenes in the Mahindra garage that we saw on the pictures. You could see what it means to them. No points on board. That was their first point score with the pole position for Edo Mortara, and then obviously points in the race as well. And you know, that was, in the race at least, like a victory to them.
Yeah, it was, and that just shows the level of competition as well in Formula E. There's so many teams, you just never know who's going to end up on pole. You kind of have a rough idea, but to them, I know the race didn't go how they would have liked, but it was almost like a victory for them.
Yeah, it was an interesting race, wasn't it? And if we look at Nick Cassidy, the man who eventually came through to win that race, he started, what was it, 9th on the grid, dropped back down to 18th, 20th, or something like that at one point, wasn't he? He was really low down the order, and then just almost ghosted his way to the front.
You just can never write Nick out. Even like you said, down in 18th, and I remember looking at the timing screen and going, oh, he's down in 18th, but I was like, he'll still come through, and he's just very smart, and I feel like you have to, of course, try and stay out of trouble, which is a lot easier said than done, but he manages to do that. He makes the right decisions, and he's just so energy efficient, and of course that's what it comes down to at the end, and he was able to stretch his legs by over 4 seconds at the end of that race.
And it's given him the championship lead here now as well. I mean, this is a pivotal weekend, I feel, in the championship. You know, we're over the halfway stage of the season now. It's double headers all the way to the end, and of course he's, you know, finished yesterday with a victory. He's riding the crest of a wave of confidence. What do you think that's going to give him going into today? Do you think he'll just be thinking, oh, well, try and do much of the same?
Yeah, that's all he can do. He's obviously want to qualify as high up the order as he can. Pole position, that's what every driver wants to qualify in pole position. Even if you don't want to be leading the race due to energy, you still want to get that pole position. That's the best place that you can start. And then you can drop back down if you want to save a little bit of energy. But of course, even if he does qualify where he did yesterday, he'll probably feel, okay, yeah, didn't go to plan, but, you know, I dropped to 18th yesterday at some point, and I was still able to win the race.
Yeah, well, this is Pascal Wehrlein, man who formerly was leading the championship up until conclusion of round 9 here yesterday. Finished 5th on the road, just in front of teammate Antonio Fitness da Costa as he heads out onto the circuit. I think what I was quite impressed with actually was Kelvin van der Linde. He came across the line in 11th place. Now, Kelvin, we saw him last year replacing Robin Freins after Freins broke his wrist in Mexico. A couple of races in the seat there, and it didn't necessarily score points with the Abt Cupra team, but put in some strong performances. They've stuck him back in the car here for this weekend. It doesn't seem to matter what he throws his hand to. He can just drive the wheels off it. No,
exactly. Huge talent. Very dropped back into Formula E quite smoothly, and like you said, just shy of points paying position, which actually Taylor Barnard, who I think he had a really good race yesterday, the young driver, he jumped into the points. Was he the youngest Formula E point scorer?
He is, yeah. He's the first teenager to score points in Formula E, which makes me feel incredibly old.
And me.
Yeah, he's just over 19 years old, is Taylor Barnard, which, you know, is incredible. And considering the fact that he was parachuted into that seat in Monaco after Sam's crash in free practice 1, you know, broke his wrist and then ended up jumping in the car for FP2. He did a really good job to just keep it out of trouble. You know, and then points a fortnight later, really impressive.
No, really, really impressive, and he's almost not going to want to give that seat back, I don't think. Sam will be there watching, probably thinking, slow down a bit, Taylor. But of course, Sam, he's had huge experience in Formula E, and really unlucky with that incident. Obviously, it happened to Robin, of course, and Seb Buemi injured his hand as well last year. And that is kind of the nature of racing on these street circuits, because you haven't got gravel that you can dive into and give yourself a chance to sort of really let go of the wheel. The walls are right there next to you, whether it's Monaco or whether it's Berlin.
Well, here is Sam Burr watching on. He's here with Neon McLaren this weekend. We saw him in the grandstands, actually, yesterday. He's been in good spirits all weekend, actually, and it's nice to see him with a smile on his face, despite the circumstances. And I like the fact that he's here to help McLaren. I have to say, given the 2 seasons he had, the few seasons he had at Jaguar racing for that matter, he looked so despondent at points last year, but he's come into McLaren and it just feels like he's at home again.
Yeah, and it's always really good to see, as I said, a real talent and someone that's had huge, huge success in Formula E. Of course, he'll be really frustrated having the injury to his hand, but he's here fully behind, supporting the team, which is great to see. And we've obviously got 2 new drivers at Envision as well.
Yeah, Joel Eriksson and Paul Aaron. Paul actually picking up a penalty of 5 seconds yesterday at the conclusion of the race. He was very close to the points paid positions at one point as well, which is an unfortunate end for him. Looking here at his teammate Joel Eriksson just coming back into the pit lane. I have to say, Envision have not had a particularly fortuitous start to 2024, even with their regular drivers at the helm, down in 8th in the team standings. Of course, 2 new drivers for this weekend. Expectations are naturally going to be different, but what's the inside line on the team? What's the atmosphere like in there at the moment?
I mean, obviously it's difficult with coming back off winning the team's championship last year, which, you know, it's not a manufacturer team like your Jaguars, like your Porsche. So for the team to have success last year, and everyone works extremely hard back at the factory as well and on site. So it's frustrating, of course, that there is frustration there, because you're coming from team champions to now having a bit of a struggle this year, and it's just not gone the way. And I think, again, that can be a little bit the nature of this sort of peloton, they call it, style racing. It's not just worked out at times for Robin and Seb, and obviously Seb had the incident in the crash in Saudi Arabia as well, which sort of ruined his weekend massively. But it is nice to see sort of 2 fresh drivers coming in who don't really essentially have any pressure on them, and 2 fast drivers as well. So it's been good down there in the garage for everyone to go, okay, well, let's see how these 2 get on. I think Robin actually and Seb are on their way from Spa as we speak, so they'll be eagerly watching in the garage.
Yeah, looking forward to seeing what they make of this weekend and their 2 super subs as well. There was a bit of a rumour flying around at one point in the season, because obviously it was only the Saturday that affected the drivers who had this World Endurance Championship clash, that they may try and get into the seat for Sunday, and the replacement drivers would suddenly come down sick, all of them, and then they would be able to take over their normal drives for the Sunday. But obviously that's not happened. And I suppose for Paul Arrow and for Joel Eriksson, it's the ultimate job interview this weekend. No,
it certainly is, and they had an unlucky race yesterday. Joel was really unlucky. He was pretty much up near in the top 10 before the contact with Van der Linde, and then obviously Paul was up in the top 10 again, and then had a little bit of contact and fell slightly down the order with some damage. So they both showed, everyone was really impressed with them in the garage, and really pleased to see them sort of fighting up there. And it's not easy jumping into Formula E cars. There's so much that goes on behind the wheel, a huge amount of work. It's so technical, and it's not sort of, for example, Paul, there is Formula 2 is extremely hard category, but Formula E, there's so much else that goes on that the driver has to do compared to driving a Formula 2 car.
Well, in terms of what are those differences then? You know, if you take something like a Formula 2 or a Formula 3 car, obviously visually these cars are a lot different, but underneath the skin they are complete technical masterpieces.
They are. There's so many different adjustments that the driver can make behind the wheel. You know, I've been having a look at the steering wheel manual. Obviously, I'm in the car on Monday, and it's absolutely mind-blowing the amount of adjustments that the drivers have to make whilst going along I'm not sure of the number, but it is way over 30 plus easily adjustments that these drivers might have to make. And at the same time, you've got to be saving energy, because that is really important. And as well, you've got this crazy sort of style of racing which produces a huge amount of overtake, so you really need to have your wits about you. And as much as you need to attack, you're also on the defense as well. You've got the concertina effects that happen at these type of circuits as well, and it's just so full on. You haven't got this effect of, you know, you've got tyre saving, etc. It's full on, it's energy saving.
Yes, certainly is. Just looking here at Ollie Rowland coming through and out of turn 9.
Good improvement in the last sector. Cassidy behind is in outlap.
Rowland making his way through there, just listening to his race engineer. That triple apex left-hander, you kiss the first one, miss the second one, go through on the third one. It's almost reminiscent, to a slower degree, of turn 8 at Istanbul. Sort of the different lines that drivers are taking. And we saw actually in qualifying quite a few drivers getting caught out by those who were on different strategies on slower laps while some were on faster laps, getting their lap times balked almost, you know, just getting caught at the wrong place at the wrong time. Yeah,
no, it's and you can hear just the power, just the torque of these Formula E cars riding on board with Oliver Rowland there. Just have to be so gentle with the throttle, even though it's quite an abrasive surface here in Berlin. It still has a tendency of traction loss out of these slower speed corners, but he's not setting the world alight at the moment. Sounds like he's just playing about with a little bit potentially of energy saving, or even actually it could be a bit of a prep lap as well.
Yeah, just making his way through into that triple apex final series of corners. This driver's eye view, you can see them soaring away at the wheel, and that's the thing with Formula E, is the car is always moving. They sort of constantly seem to be on a knife edge, trying to extract the maximum performance out of it, and it's not. Again, look at Formula 2, for example. You've got slick tyres, big wings. It's almost one turn of the steering wheel. Here, you're constantly fighting to correct it. Yeah, and you can see a great shot there, actually, of all the different settings on the steering wheel. People probably saying, well, there's only 3 dials. Yeah, but there's so much. You've got a dial, and there's so much behind the setting. There's so many different variables. You've got paddles on the back. There's obviously no gears in this, so we're not upshifting or downshifting. There's just a whole range of different settings within the paddles as well, and they all do different things, multiple things, some of them.
Yeah, I feel like I want yesterday's car with these controls, but I'm just working like a computer man to sort everything out on the controls. I'm coming back to a much more realistic fit in decks, which is really good.
Good to hear there from Nick Cassidy. Let's get down to the pit lane for the first time then. Just over 15 minutes left of free practice 3, and catch up with Saunders. Saunders, it's Sunday morning. What you doing? Who's with you?
Thanks, Tom. Yeah, I'm here with Sam Byrne. It's a slightly different race experience for you this weekend. How is it being on this side of the car?
Less enjoyable, but no, I'm here to support the team. It's nice to be able to help a young up-and-coming star like Taylor. You know, he's doing a solid job for us, but I want my seat back in China.
Well, let's talk about Taylor then, because yesterday was a pretty good running for him. You know, the first points for him. I think he's the youngest driver to score points in Formula E as a teenager.
Yeah, I saw that on the Formula E feed, that he had become the youngest ever point scorer in Formula E history, which is great. It's a cool accolade to have. He's doing a really solid job. I think that the race could have been even better for him. He had a puncture halfway through the race. He had to come back through that. So yeah, he's doing a decent job. We're lacking a little bit of speed this morning, so I'm going to sit behind there, try and figure out why with the rest of the engineers, and see if we can improve ready for quali.
When I caught up with him yesterday, he was like a deer in headlights at the end of the race, just like, what has just happened? It was interesting, and you know that sort of racing all too well.
Yeah, welcome to Formula E.
Exactly. Just finally, today we have 2 laps left in the race. How might that change the style of racing, the style of energy saving?
Well, the point where everybody speeds up at the end will happen earlier. We might see more people doing a traditional race, trying to qualify at the front. Yesterday we saw the winner of the race dropping back and then shooting through at the end. Maybe a more traditional qualifying position will pay dividends today.
Thanks, Sam. Back to you, Tom.
Cheers, Saunders. Thank you to Sam Bird there as well. And as I said, you know, real team spirit going on at Neon McLaren at the moment with Taylor Barnard. I have to say, though, difficult race for Jake Hughes. Down in 15th he was at the checkered flag. His weekend just doesn't seem to have got going for some reason. Looking at him in the pit lane here now, and, you know, considering the fact that Jake has had good seasons, you know, good races as well at points, in particular in qualifying, if you remember at Misano when he took pole position. But, yeah, for some reason, when it comes to the race, he just seems to be dropping back and not, you know, necessarily getting as much out of the car as, let's say, for example, the other Nissan powertrain ones, the factory cars I'm thinking of, including, you know, the man that's just going to pit lane there, Ollie Rowland.
Yeah, he has had a little bit of a struggle, and it's not ideal, and of course had a struggle yesterday, finishing down in 15th place, which is not where he deserves to be. He's a talent. Qualifying that lap at Misano was really impressive, getting that pole position there. But again, that just shows how close it is in Formula E, the unpredictability. You can be on a real high one weekend, and then you go to the next venue and you think, well, why am I so far down? Why am I struggling? But also just the nature of the racing. Again, you can just get one mishap, or you can just not be in the correct position, and that's why Nick Cassidy's so good, because he just seems to put himself in those best places. And you go, well, Hank, where's Nick come from? He's popped himself up the order, and if you are slightly in the middle, when you're going into that concertina effect, then that's not the most ideal place to be, and I think maybe that's a bit of a struggle with Jake Hughes is maybe struggling with. Yeah,
it's funny though, because if you watched him after qualifying, he looked like he won the lottery and lost the ticket. After it, you know, he looked like he'd taken the jackpot, because an incredible job that he did during the race. Oh, Antonio Felix da Costa. Oh, actually clips the back of the ERT going through turn 7. That's Sergio Sette Camera, who was cruising on the racing line seemingly whilst da Costa was on a hot lap. And I imagine the stewards are probably going to be taking a closer look at that, because it's not the first time we've seen this weekend a driver cruising on the racing line. No, it's and we saw, we'll have a little bit of a replay, but da Costa's going down, heavy on the brakes, overshoots the corner ever so slightly. The RT does get out the way, but I think, yeah, it's a little bit too late. I don't think anything's going to get done there, to be honest. You can see da Costa just gets a little bit of rear locking, overshoots the corner, and gives, I wouldn't necessarily say it was a friendly wave as he drove past, but some sort of wave to say, yeah, hang on, mate, you got in my way. But I don't think the stewards will do anything about that. Well, either way, it's not ideal for his run plan at the moment there for Antonio Felix da Costa. Where's he sitting at the moment in the order? Down in 14th place. Just come back into the pit lane following that there as well. This is John-Eric Vergne, podium man from yesterday. Another front row start he took, a second successive one actually. You see he misses the apex at turn 2 there by Country Mile. It's a tricky corner that actually, because you're braking and turning through turn 1, and you've got a lot of lateral load on the outside front tyre. You have, and it's bumpy down there as well, as we saw Jeb was skipping over the bumps trying to get the car stopped and the car into the apex, and just wasn't able to do that. And you can see the front tyres skipping over the surface, missing the first apex, getting the second one quite nicely to get on that power nice and early to get the run out. And again, even slightly there, you need to try and get the car as straight as possible heading down into 9 for that heavy braking zone. So this is what Berlin, it looks on paper, you would say, well, it seems a fairly simple track. It's like stop and go, but you've got the bumps, you've got the load here as well. That long left-hander, you're just having to be patient with the throttle, get on the accelerator, and of course you've got this long run down into turn 1 and across the finish line. Yeah, it's a really interesting surface here as well, incredibly abrasive. You know, I was looking at the tyres of Cassidy in particular when he came to the grid at the end of the race for the podium celebrations, and they were really quite worn. It's really abrasive because of the stones and the concrete and so on. Yeah, it certainly is. And little snap of left and right oversteer there from Jev, and you can see the curbs as well are quite aggressive. Those typical Formula E curbs that they draw you in sometimes. You think, oh, they don't look too bad, and give them a smack, and it's not ideal. But yeah, the surface is certainly unique here. Just had a notice come up on our time screen about the incident between da Costa and Sette Camera. It is under investigation by the stewards. I'd imagine it will probably be a fine, if anything. I don't think there'll be any sanctions coming from it, but we'll wait and see what the stewards deem. As we look here at Kelvin van der Linde, muscling that Abt Cupra through. I have to say, this has been a strong weekend for the Mahindra powertrain. They've struggled a lot with outright pace and efficiency at certain points, but Mortara getting some points on the board. Obviously, the Apps Coopers both fairly unlucky, and Jordan King is his first time in the factory Mahindra, so you can't really compare him to his teammate. But nonetheless, they've had good pace this weekend.
Yeah, they have, and the times are so close here as well. Okay, maybe not so much in this free practice session because, of course, everyone's on different run plans. But this is a great circuit for that sort of closeness of lap times. So if you just find that extra tiny bit of performance somewhere from the previous time out at Monaco, that can make big prizes and make big games.
This man here, Jehan Darubla, just in the pit lane as well. More on him in a moment, because we've got a few stories to tell you about his race, actually. Looking here at Mitch Evans. But yeah, just going back to Jehan Darubla, 11th fastest in this session. I have to say, this has been his strongest weekend in Formula E so far in terms of outright pace. In the race yesterday, he was up there in the points positions, and then he clattered into the back of another car during all the melee down at turn 9. But I actually understand that he was looking at his dash because they'd made a miscalculation. Maserati told him the wrong number of laps and said, oh, you need to adjust something in the steering wheel. So he looks down for half a second, looks back up. Before you know it, he's at the scene of the crash. And
again, that's what I say about Formula E. It's so there's so much closeness in the racing, and you have to make those vital adjustments. And with the laps, it has to sync up with the laps that are added on, the laps or time, if it goes to time remaining. And that will, of course, then affect your targets on your steering wheel to how much energy and how much energy saving you need to do. So that's why he would be looking down. But, of course, I sort of described it to someone yesterday. It's almost when you're sat on that M25 traffic or any motorway of your choice that has lots of traffic, and the traffic almost suddenly stops. You think, what's on earth's going on? And that happens in the mid-pack. And Darubla was there in that mid-pack and obviously trying to make that adjustment. And before you know it, he was into the back of someone.
Yeah, I'll tell you what it reminded me of, actually, speaking with motorising, using that reference, actually, is, you get the gantries up over your head and you see someone going down to 40 and you get some absolute tool who's going through that at, still at 70 miles an hour, and then they slam on their brakes. That's almost what it felt like at certain points in that race. Drivers coming through steaming up the outside or up the inside, and then before you know it, they're just caught in a traffic jam with nowhere to use that extra momentum.
It's exactly that. As looking at the timing screen, a few drivers setting personal best. Barnard, who's down at the bottom end at the moment, said not a bad first sector there.
Yeah, it's an interesting one, actually. We should expect to see these sort of qualifying runs coming in towards the last 10 minutes of this session. We're faster than we were yesterday, though. We're in the 101s already. The first 101 that we saw yesterday was in qualifying. So the track evolution certainly ramping up now at this, second round of the weekend.
Yeah, and I was sitting actually in that grandstand that is opposite Jake Hughes there during free practice yesterday, and it was very overcast. We're here for Evans.
Right, the thing is so bad in turn 9 in the last corner with front rotation under rotation.
So he's then talking about under rotation. So that's turn 9 is the tight hairpin, and I can't remember where else he was saying about actually. To be honest, the last corner. Yeah. So just struggling with understeer, or just not getting enough lock on the car. What's that all about?
Yeah, just struggling to get the car rotated by the sounds of it for Mitch, and sort of you need to try and really get the rotation done to get on the throttle to shoot out of the corner 9. You've got that sort of kink to the left through 10, which of course is even flat out down into 12. That's a fairly long straight, and then we've got an even longer one out of the last corner all the way down into, well, effectively turn 1, 2, the braking zone. But just heading back to what I was saying before Mitch hopped on the radio, it was very overcast yesterday morning.
It's just way too easy to lock the front. Doesn't matter what you do with deck. It's exactly the same story every lap. And at 4, the thing's over-rotating. The other set of tyres, it rotates over-rotates every...
So he's also struggling with a bit of over-rotation as well. The rear coming round, bit of oversteer, so he doesn't sound particularly happy, does he? But he's set fastest first sector of anybody on track. And box as well, 10.5 off, but yeah, it doesn't sound very happy.
Is there such a thing as a happy racing driver when they're in a car? You're always chasing that impossible dream, aren't you? Just had a notice again on the timing screen. Jake Hughes and now Sergio Sette Camara also under investigation for impeding as well. I tell you what, Sette Camara is having a bit of a dog's day so far in FP3.
Yeah, he's not having the ideal time at the moment. Cassidy's set not a bad first sector. Maybe he's a little bit happy in the sister Jaguar.
Yeah, just see attack mode laps coming in now as well. If you see the name flashing pink on the tower graphic, that means they're in the full 350 kilowatts of power. Normally, you'd have 300 kilowatts. That'll be the same for the group stages and for the majority of the race. But for attack mode in the race and also for the dual stages in qualifying, you go up to 350 kilowatts. It's interesting, though, because even though you've got extra power, lap times are generally quicker. But here in Gen 3, it's not used in the same way as we saw in Gen 2, for example. You have to be very tactical about how you... It's almost about losing as fewer positions as you can in Gen 3.
No, it is, and again, it goes back to the racing that's being produced at these type of circuits at the moment. And it was almost, and I was there watching the coverage yesterday going, well, Evans was, I think he was probably one of the last, wasn't he, to use his attack, and I was thinking, what's he going to do now? Because he left it so late and it all bunched up. But yeah, the attack mode certainly comes into play, and it is part of the racing, and it is part of the strategy and the tactics.
Well, we've got just over 2.5 minutes left of this session. Let's go down to the Jaguar TCS Racing team. Nick Cassidy in second, Mitch Evans in fourth at the moment. 2 successive wins for them. Saunders is catching up with team principal James Barkley in the pit lane.
Thanks, Tom. Yeah, James, let's talk about yesterday to begin with, because that was an incredible run of form. Again, another great victory for Nick Cassidy.
Yeah, I mean, yesterday was a really intense day. We're still processing it, to be honest. When you go from P9 to P21 and to the win, there's a lot of things that happened in that race, but it was a really, really great strategy. Nick executed that brilliantly as well. He had a really kind of clean run through the field when he needed to, and yeah, to win by 4.5 seconds or something was very, very special.
We also saw the difficulty of maintaining position in the top of the pack with Mitch as well, chopping and changing so much in the second half of the race. With today's race in mind, 2 laps less, if both Mitch and Nick can get near each other in qualifying, what sort of position does that put you into the race for even better points?
Yeah, obviously slightly different race distance today, so maybe it's not that extreme of peloton as we saw, but there's still going to be a peloton effect. And of course, with both cars in the game together, you can work together. And we saw the Porsches doing that at times yesterday. We saw the DS Penske's doing that at times yesterday. So it just gives you that other kind of card to play. But again, you know, it's you need a bit of fortune in this kind of racing as well. And we don't obviously miss that from yesterday. We could tell at the times that the seas parted a bit, and yeah, we have taken a lot of learnings from the race at the front yesterday, and I think it's going to be a case of, again, cool heads and adjusting your strategy and just making the right calls at the right time.
Thanks, James.
Thank you.
Cheers, James, and cheers, Saunders. He said they're still processing yesterday. Does that mean they've still got a bit of a sore head from last night? Potentially.
No idea. I know that with these double headers, it's such late nights for the teams, especially if you get any sort of damage. I know the Envision team didn't leave until gone midnight, a lot of them yesterday, and then you're back. Their leave time was at 5:45 this morning. So these double headers, they're tough, and of course then they've got the rookie test tomorrow as well.
Well, that's if there's any bits left of the car. If we see, given what
That's
we saw
true.
yesterday.
That's true. I might be driving around in like a Formula Ford style, no wings or anything.
Yeah, that will be the full Sete camera spec, given where he was in the race yesterday. There were no wheels on his wagon to a degree. There is Ede Mortara, pole man from yesterday. Good pace he's had so far this weekend. Seems to like this new temple hop layout. He's on a personal best in the first sector. What's it like as he comes to the line? Does he improve? Well, he does in time, but not in position. Stays 9th quickest at the moment. Checker flag will be out in a couple of moments' time. Evans now completing his final flying lap as Günther also just improves up to 13th quickest. Paul Aaron is the first of the drivers to take the checker flag in 8th at the moment. I have to say, very impressed with Paul. Actually spoke to him earlier on in the weekend. Just his maturity, really beyond his years. He's only 20 years old, but he just seems to be someone who's really confident and assured within himself. Yeah,
no, and he's doing great jobs in the junior categories as well, and yeah, it was almost taken to Formula E like a duck to water in some sense. Was running up in the top 10 yesterday before some contact, and as I said, it's so tricky to move across into Formula E. It's so technical, there's so much that goes on for the drivers to deal with, and Paul, like you said, he's only 20 but so mature for his age, and he's doing, personally, I think, a really good job.
Flurry of personal best lap times coming in as Barnard improves up to 18th quickest. Günther and Daruba have gone at 4th and 5th fastest as well, so another strong start to the day for Maserati. Verlaine looks like he's going to end this session top because Evans doesn't improve on his final flying lap, but interesting there with Porsche. ending up at the top of the pile in free practice. It's all good for that, but they want to be at the top of the pile come the E-Prix this afternoon.
Yeah, everyone wants to be at the top, don't they? At the end of the day, Evans has slipped a little bit down the order. Still not, I don't know if he went back out. Did he go back out? I'm not sure if he did. But he'll be diving into the engineering. And of course, it's a tight turnaround, isn't it?
Okay, so that checker, keep pushing for tire temp, keep pushing for tire temp with brake warm up, and we'll prepare for launch.
So everyone will come now to do a practice start, which of course is a whole procedure in itself with using the paddles and with all different buttons that the drivers will have to push. It's not so straightforward that you have to stop and go.
Have you tested the practice start on the simulator? What's the whole procedure? How do you get it?
I haven't started. I haven't. No. So I'm guessing we might be able to do some tomorrow. I'll have to let you know.
Smoking the rear tyres away. It's interesting actually.
Makes for good pictures.
It does. Do you know, it's taken drivers in qualifying though a couple of laps to turn those tyres on, haven't it? And do you remember when we saw in the duels, Mortara just lighting up the rears coming out of pit lane and forcing that car into understeer to try and get those temps into a working window?
Yeah.
So you still finished P2, 0.04 off their line on 350, and we're P8 on 300, 1/10 off the fastest.
Yeah, getting the tyres into the window, is so tricky. It can make or break your qualifying in pretty much any category really, but certainly in Formula E as well with these street circuits, and if the track's not ideal conditions, it's so hard. So yeah, we saw some drivers lighting it out of the pit lane, almost like doing a launch out the pit lane, just to try and get those tyres up to temperature. And that there's so much that you can do as a driver, and so many aids of course in the car, but again that's all switching all kinds of dials just to try and help you get that temperature. But there's nothing worse than going down into turn one. And let's say, for example, here at Berlin, you just haven't got the tyres in the window you want, because then you know you're losing that crucial time in that first sector.
Well, here is the man of the moment. Nick Cassidy ends the session second fastest here for free practice 3. Good confidence he's got in that Jaguar, seemingly, and another opportunity to shine here this afternoon as well. Of course, qualifying coming along the way at 10 local time. We'll be on air from 10 a.m. here in Berlin, ready to guide you through all of the action, but looking forward to seeing what happens in the group stages. It's interesting actually, because Nick and Mitch were two drivers who actually missed out on those dual stages yesterday, but it didn't affect them at all. They were still able to get strong results come the E-Prix. And speaking of results, let's have a look at the free practice 3 classification then. So Pascal Wehrlein ends up the top of the pile here this morning on Sunday for round 10, ahead of Nick Cassidy and DS Penske. Then it's the two Maseratis, Jehan de Rouvler having a fantastic session there in 4th place, ahead of Maximilian Günther and Mitch Evans. Reigning world champion Jake Dennis, a better start to his day after being all at sea here yesterday, ahead of Jean-Eric Vergne, Antonio Felix da Costa, and then Dan Ticktum in the ERT, just on the fringes of the top 10. Paul Aaron in the Envision in 11th, ahead of Poleman yesterday, Mortara, then De Grassi, King, Van der Linde, Fenestraz, Roland and Barnard in 17th and 18th, Joel Eriksson down there in 19th, and Jake Hughes continuing his challenging weekend down in 20th place so far. Likewise, Norman Netto as well. He was at the back of the grid yesterday in the Andretti. The team going completely different on setup between themselves and Jake Dennis, which did not work out in the slightest, and as such both drivers are failing to score here. They'll be hoping to try and right those wrongs. As we see Pascal Wehrlein exiting out of the car, heading down towards the weighbridge just to make sure he's complying with the regulations. Strong season for Wehrlein, of course, so far. Unlucky to miss out on the podium in the chaos yesterday, but he has taken 2 victories so far. But unfortunately, as a result of not finishing on the podium, did lose that